Well, good morning, everyone. I know we're starting to get our settled in our seats. Thank you all for coming. My name is Paige Ziplon. I'm the Executive Director of the Center of Innovation for Logistics, or as many of you know, I'm the guy you get all the emails from. So thank you all for coming this morning. And welcome to the 6th Annual Georgia Logistics Summit. There were over 2,300 people registered to come hang out with you guys today, and we're very thankful and glad you all came to Atlanta. Didn't have to brave the bad weather. We've got some good weather cooked up for today. It's supposed to be even warmer tomorrow for those of you coming from the Northeast, like many of our folks from DC. Thank you for coming. We have a real action-packed agenda for you spread out through the rest of today and tomorrow. You should have all received a bag, at least you have gotten a program. I'd encourage you to look through that program to see some of the details of how it all flows so you can make the best use of your time today. Please do find your seats. If we are going to be kind of packed in here. If you can, if somebody's trying to find a seat, if you can squeeze in so we can get some more folks in there. Please also silence your cell phones so we can make the best use. We're going to be videotaping this session, and we want to have a nice, clean audio track for it. As you walk around today, you'll see on your seats, first of all, you've got some nice notepads for taking notes and hopefully use for asking questions. Our sponsor, Vanderland, is providing our notepads for today. And Rockefeller Group is providing all-day coffee and snacks for you outside, both today and tomorrow. So thank you for both of our sponsors. This year's summit, we put together a session to start off the summit, like we did last year, focused on international partnerships and possibilities. To lead this discussion and lead our moderation for this panel, we're very excited to have Mr. Ted Dean, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Services with the United States Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. All of your speaker bios, and this holds true for today and tomorrow, you can read about our speakers in your program, about them personally, as well as their company is located in there. It allows our speakers to jump right into the content that you're here to hear. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And again, if you're coming in, please find your seats, and we'll get started. Please help me welcome Mr. Ted Dean.
Thanks so much, Paige. It is a great pleasure to be here. I'm one of the ones who braved the Washington snow to come down here. Got in a little late, but I'm glad to be here and so happy to be here with you today. You stumbled slightly on my title. I always like to say it's emphasis on the deputy and assistant rather than secretary, but I'm glad you got me today and very happy to be here. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this event today. We've got a really fantastic panel today. A great 2 days at the event, and I really encourage you all to spend time, get to know everyone in the room. This is a really a fabulous gathering. We've been working with Paige for a number of years and so happy to be here and support this event and have this opportunity to talk about international logistics and supply chain. I'm probably a little bit unusual animal in the Department of Commerce in Washington in that although I grew up in Washington, D.C., I actually spent 16 years running a consulting firm in China before I moved back to take this job. And so I think that experience gives me a little bit of a perspective into the international nature of supply chains, into the factors that drive companies' choices as they make decisions about where they do business. And I know it's an international flavor today, but sort of wearing the hat that I wear now at the Department of Commerce also gives me an appreciation for the importance to U.S. competitiveness about getting the politics and policies around supply chain right. So I think this is a great discussion that we're having here today and a really important input into the way we're thinking about this at the Commerce Department. Now, the popular press often talks about competition between products and brands, and that's what ends up in Business Week and the other things we sort of read most commonly. But I think for those of us in this room, we know that we're also really talking about competitions between supply chains, both within borders and across borders globally. And as policymakers, we have to be aware that the quality and the interconnectedness of a nation's freight transportation and its physical and trading infrastructure is crucial to competitiveness. It's important for public and private sectors to work together to ensure that freight transport and supply chain infrastructure operate smoothly and efficiently. I think this works. We've got representatives from a number of countries here and from governments here as well. This works in the areas where we cooperate and trade and we can create win-wins. It also works obviously in the areas where we compete and where we're looking at how do we ensure that more business activity is happening in the United States, or from another country's perspective, more business activity is happening there. But the focus on supply chain and the interconnectedness of supply chain, I think, serves us all very, very well. I come from the school of moderating events, where I want to leave absolutely as much time as I can for the great panel that we have here. But I did want to give three very, very quick, and they will in fact be quick, I'll stick to my promise on this, very, very quick examples of some of the work we're doing that I think relates to this and sort of how we're thinking about this. The first thing is actually something that's hosted in my office at the Department of Commerce, which is our Advisory Committee on Supply Chain Competitiveness. Now, I think you can imagine, and there may be some in the audience with some skepticism about how efficiently the federal government might tackle some of these questions, and there might be some of you who'd expect that we'd have a port advisory group and a highways advisory group, and maybe if we were really put our minds together, we'd have a IT advisory group looking at supply chain questions, and they probably wouldn't talk to each other. Well, in the last several years, we've launched this Supply Chain Competitiveness Advisory Council. We have 45 leading players from across those industries, also those who need supply chain, who are using supply chain, the technology vendors to supply chains, providing policy input to us as we think about these issues. Full disclosure, Paige Siplin is one of our co-chairs of that group and has appreciate his leadership in that area. We're also making sure that that group, so taking industry input, coordinates across government. So the Secretary of the Department of Transportation and the Environmental Protection Agency Administrator are ex officio representatives on that committee. So we're gathering the industry input from industry and then making sure it feeds to all the right places across the government. Their first set of recommendations related to ITDS and the single window here in the United States. And that's sort of the second area that I wanted to mention very, very briefly, where we're, again, looking for how we can better serve all of you in this room and make sure that the work that's being done following the President's executive order on February 19th for the implementation of single window is being done to meet the needs of government in terms of security and other things, but is really being done to meet the needs of industry as well. And so the Commerce Department, my agency, will be leading industry outreach there to make sure that we're hearing your input on how that it can be done well and done in the most commercially meaningful way. And finally, I'll mention one other item which is hosted at the Department of Transportation, but that we're closely coordinating with as well, is the efforts to have a national freight strategic plan. And again, we're looking for input from industry. We at the Department of Commerce sit on also the Department of Transportation Advisory Group in this area, and looking for opportunities to make sure that we're, again, doing this in as commercially relevant a way as possible. I mentioned those three because I think they're great examples of partnerships between the private sector and government, where we know this is not, these are not policy areas where sort of theory works. These are policy areas where the work we do has to be commercially relevant. It has to be guided by the imperatives of your businesses, and where I think there are huge gains for U.S. competitiveness, but huge gains for just efficiency throughout the system that serve U.S. businesses and U.S. government well, but serve us all well in just making sure that we're moving product and moving opportunities globally. I have a couple of very quick housekeeping items I did want to mention. The first is we've got a time clock here. We're going to try to keep on that. I will give some of our speakers the hook if they go too long. Also, in the spirit of managing time, I'm going to hold questions until the very end, so make sure we do get time for all of our speakers as we go through. And as Paige said, if you are interested in learning more about our speakers and their background, please do refer to the conference materials. I'm not going to spend time on lengthy introductions. We have an extremely distinguished group here, and I hope they will excuse me for not singing their praises longer than that or singing their praises individually, but rather jumping right in. And with that, let me then turn to our first speaker. We're going to go in sequence here through the countries and begin starting with a conversation about Japan. And Juan Galarza from Coca-Cola will be our first speaker. So let me go ahead and invite him up to the stage.
Very good. Good morning to everybody. As Ted, thank you, Ted, said, my name is Juan Galarza. I'm with the Coca-Cola Company, and originally from Argentina. So having an Argentina in the U.S. talking about Japan is a true statement about an international Coca-Cola being an international company. Yeah? So let me walk you through a little bit of our business in Japan. It won't be long. So the total industry in Japan for non-ready-to-drink and ready-to-drink drinks is around 20 billion liters. We measure that in unit cases, but to translate it into liters, it's around 20 billion liters. And I would say the big difference is like sparkling, which is the carbonated beverages, only represents 16% of the portfolio of ready-to-drink drinks over there, which is very different from the rest of the world. Where it's probably between 70 and 80%. So that's one big difference in Japan for us. Yeah. As you know, we, the Coca-Cola Company, sell the concentrate to our partners, our bottling partners, that they manufacture the beverages and then they sell and they distribute those beverages to our customers there. And we have 8 of those bottling partners nowadays in Japan to cover our entire infrastructure and country. The big difference in Japan is this number here. We have 1 million vending machines that are like customers, big coolers that can dispense bottles and cans, and we have 1 million of that. It represents 40% of our sales there. In any other country, this will represent probably 5%. Over there is 40%. So, and that requires a different logistics, in Japan. Very special. Our company, Coca-Cola, of that 3 billion unit cases, 20 million cases, ready to drink is our volume is 1 billion, which is approximately 6 billion liters. And these are our key competitors: Suntory, Itoen, Kirin, and Asahi. And we cross the entire portfolio. So there we're selling, sparkling beverages, sport beverages, coffees, teas, you name it. Everything is there, with bits and pieces, with food, smoothies. Everything is in Japan. So from an innovation point of view, Japan is our leading market. So why am I talking to you here? 5 years ago, when I joined the company here in Atlanta, the Coca-Cola Company went and bought shares in our 4 bottling partners in Tokyo, and we were tasked in developing supply chain capabilities. So we were tasked in consolidating these 4 bottlers into one. Eventually, that happened last year. But 5 years ago, we will say, okay, let's start this journey. Let's start building supply chain capabilities. Let's start consolidating this. And I was tasked to help in this process. So I would say that I traveled in the last 4 or 5 years almost once a month to Japan. So I'm pretty familiar with them, with the culture. So finally, we combined these 4 bottlers into one, in Tokyo, and that happened last year. So I will go through, I would say, like a bullet points, on people, let's say processes, culture, technology of what we found, our journey over there. And so at the beginning, especially, this is the Coca-Cola Company, and me itself, it was not an easy journey. When you get there, you come from the U.S., basically, there's very, although, the Coca-Cola Company, you would say, a lot of people speak English here. No, very little people, and if they speak, they're given their risk aversion, they don't want to speak because they don't know it perfectly. So they prefer to have an interpreter. So you're always going back and forth through an interpreter, which in a way sometimes is good. In those discussions, you got time to think, your response, and it keeps you calm. But I would say that for me, the most, from a company perspective, my first reaction going there was, well, what am I doing here? You know, I come from Argentina. You know, it's not that, and I worked mostly in Latin America, in a way, emerging markets, and here I am in a developed market. But their mindset was very much focusing quality and quality at any cost. Yeah. So there was a lot of productivity gains to make there without hurting the quality, because there's a lot of quality or non-value added quality. Yeah? So you know, I realized that, and given my background, says, you know, yes, I can be of a value here. The other part is that it's completely different. As you know, when you ask them, what is, and you ask plant managers, you ask maintenance managers, you ask supply chain directors, what is that you value the most? And they say, we value harmony. And harmony is, we value, you know, being in harmony with our working force, with our community, and if that means, you know, making 2% OI, they're okay. You know, so, and that is very different from our mentality, yeah? That we need to grow and grow and grow our OIs. And so to move them and getting excited in that direction was a little bit of a struggle. Yeah? Very friendly people, you know, very nice people. I would say that once you penetrate that little bit of a cocoon, and it takes time, and I put it there, the real honey, which is for them to tell you exactly what they think. It takes a lot of time. You know, it's not, you know, they're not going to go and come openly like in countries in Latin America or countries in Africa where they want to talk to you and they want to tell you the problems that they have. No, you know, there you need to get time, you know, in meetings. You need to get time off meetings, having dinners with them, you know, having karaoke with them, and so once you get their confidence, now they will talk, you know, the real things. Yeah? And by the way, you know, if they do like this in a meeting, it says that they understand you. Yeah, it doesn't. They're not trying. They're not saying I agree with you, and that's also because we were doing a lot of preaching at the beginning, and there was a lot of nodding here like this. I would say, wow, you know, we're getting the message. Yeah, we're moving, and nothing was moving. So I says, no. So at the end, so now I know. Do you understand me? Yes. Do you agree with me? No. Why not? And then we start a different conversation. Yeah. So in a way, from a people and culture perspective, you know, very nice, but it takes time to get in. You know. Process. You know, I mentioned a little bit, but when you look at some of those processes that they had there, they were like being 20 years old, you know, and some other they were very automated, yeah? Very modern. But in general, when you look at planning processes and logistic processes and manufacturing processes, very old, very manual. You know, people collecting data all over. You know, and that's our plans. And I would say, to probably not only the Tokyo plants, but I also went to the Coca-Cola West plants and to the North plants, and all of them operating in a similar fashion. You know? So not in a way best in class in terms of an overall management of the process, absolute best in class in what we call good manufacturing processes in terms of cleanliness in the factories. You can eat in the floor. You know, you go into a factory visit, and you will wash your hands, and you will change shoes probably 4 or 5 times. Yeah? Completely, you know, out of this world. Yeah? You do factory walks with slippers. That would be completely, you know, unthought here in the U.S. or in the West. There you go, you put your slippers in, and they go after, you know, washing hands and this. Well, that's the culture. Yeah. A lot of overprocessing. Yeah? And let me. So we normally, you know, when we change flavors, we do a CIP, a cleaning place. And part of that cleaning place is, is flushing. Once you put the detergents and the different chemicals to clean the pipelines, then you flush them. And we flush them, and we have a standard. We flush them for, let's say, 10 minutes. So we were there and said, why do you flush this for 45 minutes? No, because we need to make sure that there's no lingering flavor of the previous flavor that we were. So I said, why don't you want you to do it 2 hours then? Let's go and establish a standard here. Let's put a panel in place. Let's test the water, and once we get zero, testing and zero, lab testing, then we're good. And try and trust your testing. So to build all of that, it took time because also they're very risk adverse. They don't want to change. They want to continue with the processes that they have. So in order to do those process improvements, you need to walk them. You need to be there showing what you need to do. It's not go and do it and tell me how it happens. You need to go there, be with them, do the process, do the testing, and then see that it's, so let's try it, let's do a pilot trial, and then you roll it out. So it's a whole set of steps that you need to take to make them comfortable with the change, and to make and empower them. Once you do a couple of it, and it's been 4 years now, 5 years, now we can see that they have a self-driven internal motor that they're looking for things that they're moving forward, but it took a lot of time. So, as I said, process improvement there takes longer than expected. So a little bit of a, probably from the back you cannot see, a bit from here, but everything is, the secondary packaging, everything is carton. I would say 95% is carton. And we were trying to go there with our shrink wrap package that we use here in the US and in most of the world. The key barrier for that was that, they have a little holes on the side, that shrink pack. They say, what if a fly gets in the package? What if dust gets in the package? So they said, yes, but in a way, this is a secondary package. So our merchandiser will be there, they clean the bottle, they put it in the shelf, so there's no problem. So that, for example, we haven't penetrated yet, but we're there. We have that project. And it's not that you're changing one part of the industry, because everybody's like that. So you need to change the whole industry if you go in those kind of projects. Electronic inspector, that's the very automated part of what one of the parts that they have. If you put a label, they put an inspector, an online inspector to automate that. That's very good. In the trucks, you have a little bit of a cushion that they put inside, very manual. They load some of the trucks manually, and the cleaning place, perfect. Regarding technology, the use of ASRS is also very spread because the cost of land is very expensive over there, so high-rise warehouses is one thing that we use. Trucks, very small trucks. They use 13-ton instead of 20-ton big trucks, so that's unusual. And there are a lot of possibility of using big trucks. But because they focus on the little exceptions in some of the small streets inside of Tokyo, they don't use it. So we went and basically scanned and identified all the lanes that we can use big trucks, and now we're in the process of putting big trucks in all those lanes. Very protective of Japanese suppliers. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want to protect, the local industry? But, they're very protective for us to introduce some of the European suppliers in our line manufacturing. It took us 3 years and a lot of convincing and a lot of meetings. We also introduced an American software there to do our planning process, and we finally, did it. But it took us a lot of time. So I would say, to basically end my presentation, that if any one of you, wants to go to Japan and make business there, be in a way prepared to invest a lot of time ahead. If you're thinking about 1 year, this is going to take you 3. So it's 3 times whatever timeline you're thinking. People is very important there, and be prepared to invest that time to gain the trust. And in our case, it absolutely paid off, and it's being a very, in a way, success story for the Coca-Cola company over there in Japan. Thank you so much and for your time.
Thank you, Juan, for a great case study, and thank you for keeping exactly the 15 minutes as I watch the clock here. So with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker to look from a slightly different perspective at the Japan market, Trevin Dye, who's the Assistant Director of Business Development at Japan External Trade Organization. So I'll pull up your presentation, Trevin.
Good morning, everybody. I will do my best to be as brief as possible and stay within the 15 minutes allotted. Okay. So the first question I get is, why Japan? This is the first consideration. And as I considered this in respect to 3 prongs or 3 windows. The first being considering Japan as an innovation hub, as Juan mentioned. It's a great R&D center for Asia business. The Japanese are very good at allotting time to find information, almost exceedingly so sometimes. So this is a great position for new companies to be in terms of R&D hubs in the Asia region. Business platform, as a bridge nation, Japan operates as a springboard into other Asian markets. It's a safe society, and I often get a question in terms of intellectual property protection. Japan is very adamant about that, and you'll see, I didn't represent it here because of the interest of time, but the lawsuits related to IP infringement are very low, exceedingly low, compared to the US certainly, and other countries. So that's a great consideration. Also of note, in the Global Competitiveness Report for last year, Japan is rated at the top in terms of business sophistication. So that's something else that companies can take advantage of in entering the Asian market. And lastly, Japan is a trendsetter. Japan enjoys a cultural position that allows it to set trends in entertainment and media and fashion platforms, which makes it a great market in terms of the quality that Juan was talking about. Quality is very, well, in Japan, the standard of quality is exceedingly high, so it is a great test market for new opportunities in Japan, and that's something to consider as well. So looking to Abenomics, which is coined by the Abe administration, of course, this sets 3 arrows or 3 prongs of policy, one being a bold monetary policy, bold fiscal policy, flexible fiscal policy, and a focus on private investment and small businesses or new businesses through entrepreneurship and other strategies to end the stagnation, economic stagnation and deflation in Japan to usher in a new revival or revitalized economy. I didn't have time, or I won't have time to go through each of these prongs, but these are sort of umbrella policies, so there are multiple bullet points underneath this. But many deal with HR and labor, incorporating women more into the economy, taking advantage of the elderly contributions in the economy, and also focusing on youth and making them more global, or I guess focusing on their skills to make them more globally active in the future. This is a brief overview of the numbers, just in general, in terms of the impacts of Abenomics. You can see that GDP and stock prices have increased. The yen is also gaining traction. The unemployment rate has now been reduced to 3.7%. And business conditions, for the first time in 22 years, have been expressed favorably from manufacturers and non-manufacturing SMEs in Japan, increasingly so. So this is something that has been a great landmark in terms of the new implications of Abenomics. So looking very briefly to the future, you can see that GDP is improving. There will be an 8% consumer tax imposed, actually coming in the next month, The impacts are said to be temporary, but the overall economy will still remain strong. So will be one negative impact for new companies coming in, but it will be rectified quickly. This slide is a further representation of that. You can see that 52% of major retailers expect that impact to be resolved within 6 months. So that's great for new products coming in as well. This slide goes on to 2017, and you can see that it's also a positive impact on the GDP. I tried to eliminate some of these slides, so there's a lot of explanation surrounding these, but this is just a graphic representation. Okay, this slide is talking about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership impacts, and it's expected to have up to 10 trillion yen infused into the Japanese market as well as the regional market. So this will be a great opportunity not only for Japan, but for the Asia region and new companies coming into it. This slide is a little more into the future. This is a representation of the impact of the Olympic Games of 2020. And you can see many companies are looking forward to this as a business opportunity, of course, over 80% of them, in fact. And this will have 3 to 20 trillion yen impact, which we're working hard to make sure that American companies or other foreign companies can partake in this as well, given the right opportunities. Okay, so since we're also talking about new opportunities for companies, the last section deals with JETRO services. And although JETRO's role has evolved over the years, its main goal is to help foreign companies to establish themselves in Japan, either through a physical presence or through product placement. And increasingly, especially after the Tohoku disaster, we're helping Japanese companies a little more than we used to in terms of helping not only that region, but helping Japanese companies to find business partners abroad, either through establishing physical business partnerships or helping them to place products from the other side. One of the challenges, incidentally, that I've run into in this category, Japanese products are in high demand, but many of the purveyors of those products don't have materials in English. So they'll say, oh, well, what do they need over in America? And America says, well, what do you have? Well, they can't make the materials without the demand, and they can't, vice versa. It's kind of a catch-22 situation. So this is the one thing that we're working on very diligently now. So the Japanese government has vowed to attract 35 trillion yen in FDI by 2020. And that's very ambitious, but I think it is doable. And to help accomplish this, JETRO, of course, is employing more industry specialists to help companies going to Japan, as well as establishing more sophisticated support systems and networking consultation services within Japan. Okay. Although JETRO is not really restricted by industry, there are various industries that we focus on, and here are 5 of them. Disaster recovery is actually the newest one. But the environment, healthcare, because of the aging population in Japan, of course, ICT, service industry, and disaster recovery, meaning helping not only the affected area, but helping those companies to do trade here. You can see that over 1,000 companies have successfully established themselves in Japan in the past 10 years, over 300 of those being from North America. One interesting note on this slide is healthcare. When we think of healthcare here, we think of the elderly falling and not getting up, for example, or being less active than they are in Japan. So companies that can offer services to active elderly in Japan have great opportunity in Japan right now, and that's something that really hasn't been tapped into very much. Okay, so we have various incentives or really special zones. They're kind of divided into 2 prongs. One is special zones outside of the Tokyo area, and one is specific to reconstruction in terms of the disaster. The Japanese government, I was trying to see what else I could share. They extend not only tax and financial breaks, but also regional incentives that I'll discuss a little later, depending on what industry you're in. And these are some of the programs. And all of this I can give to anyone who wants to see the full presentation later. I can make sure that you get it for your review later on. But these are some of the more interesting programs and invitation programs that we have for companies, depending on which zone they fall into. So, and I can discuss those a little bit later. And this slide is a representation of the approved zones, and you can see by region outside of Tokyo, each one has a special incentive for tourism, service industries, manufacturing, and depending on which one you choose, the incentives can be substantial. So this is something that companies should really consider as they go to Japan, especially if they have an opportunity to operate outside of the Tokyo area itself. Okay. So lastly, this is one of JETRO's best or most effective tools for companies entering the Japanese market. We have IBSC centers, and these are basically incubators for companies in Japan. All of the services are free of charge to companies. So the attorneys, the market specialists, the office space is also free of charge. Everything is free of charge with the exception of the fax and phone line, which is kind of small in Japan. But this is a great resource for companies who are used or looking for human resource solutions or wanting to take advantage of the full library and full resources in Japan. And there are about 6 of these, 7, across Japan right now. So depending on which facility you'd like to take advantage of, they have a full range of services to assist you. Am I staying within? Okay, good. All right, and so this last slide is just a very small example of the types of companies we've helped recently in each category. And you can see that they're pretty diverse. And we look forward to helping as much as possible. It's hard for me to actually elaborate on each section, but maybe in the Q&A, if someone has a question, we can deal more with that. But that's a very general overview. Is that all right? Thanks.
Thank you, Trevin. And it sounds like there will be a lot more to talk about as we get to Q&A and over lunch as well. I'd now like to shift gears slightly, and we'll shift our focus to India. And our first speaker, actually from a firm right in the center of this in supply chain, C.H. Robertson, Kartik Deodhar.
Thank you. Thanks, Ted, and good morning, everyone. So we've just heard about Japan, and as I've been listening into this, I've just been drawing parallels across all the Asian countries, including India, in terms of how people and culture play such an important role as we define our investment strategies. So when we think about India and the situation in India today, we know that there's a speed at which the change is coming. We don't know whether it's fast or it's slow, but there's definitely lots of literature on it. But irrespective of that speed, I think what makes it relevant for the future is its population. So there's 1.2 billion people today and still growing, a very large middle class, and of course, a tremendous future with one of the world's largest or youngest populations, where I believe 50% of the population is under the age of 25. So I'll try and provide some general perspective that's born from my experiences of building an India strategy and an India business. And whether you're looking to make an acquisition or start something from scratch, I think that there are 3 key things that you really need to think about and prioritize into your investment strategy. So firstly, you want to really get a strong understanding of India and the marketplace. You want to make sure you have a strong talent strategy and you hire the right people. And you want to make sure that you prioritize building your distinct culture and your brand. So these seem like basic concepts, but from my practical experience in India, the value of these three things is elevated if you really plan on having a strong and successful investment. So India can be a challenging place to do business, and I highly encourage new entrants to take a serious look at truly understanding business practices, processes, talent levels, business controls, and even getting a deeper understanding of individuals that you might have in your leadership team or on your teams that came in as part of a deal. You know, there are a few ways to accomplish this. One might be very early on in the process, creating strong alignment between your head office and your India business and your India network. An even better way might be embedding somebody into your India business for 1, 2, maybe 3 years, and having them play a role within the leadership of that organization. And the key here is to use that time to really focus on developing an understanding of process, practice, controls, risk, further aligning that team in India to your head office, defining the long-term plan that you have for that India enterprise, and really getting buy-in from the local leadership. And of course, you want to implant and instill the core values of your global organization into your India business really early on. And you can't do this single-handed. You will need to align with and hire the right people and the right leaders to do this. And trust me, not doing anything in this regard is also probably not the right choice. So all in all, it's imperative to really dig in and understand India, build the right relationships with the right people, and really get a strong understanding so that you have confidence and trust in your business in India. So the second point the second element that I think is very relevant to your India strategy is having a strong talent strategy. Now, what does this really mean? So I think it means different things at different levels and for different reasons, but it starts with aligning with the right people, as I just mentioned. The right people and the right leadership. So something you might hear a lot of as you get further along in your process with your India strategy might be, this is India and this is how we do it. And while that might work for some things, it certainly doesn't work for everything. So it's really important to align with people that understand the bigger picture and know when to switch gears from being tactically innovative to being more strategic. And that tactical innovation is absolutely required to govern the still developing India. Geography and location are a key factor in your talent acquisition process and will really impact your ability to source good leaders and good talent. For instance, you may want to build a factory close to raw materials or somewhere where you have some economic subsidies, maybe a source of skilled labor. However, once you've invested, bought, built, you might find out that you're not close enough to a tier 1 or tier 2 city. And as a result, you might have a grossly mishandled supply chain, or you might have compliance risk, or you might spend a tremendous amount of time and travel devoted to resolving issues. And all of this together with a revolving door of people in leadership. It's probably not uncommon to have all of this happen at once or together. And this can result in a significant amount of missed opportunity in those early years of that investment that will impact the longer-term return as well. So proactively managing your talent strategy and putting an emphasis on it early will impact the performance of your investment in India. But India is an extremely competitive place. So anyone that's done business there or knows a little bit about it will know this, but the competitiveness is really a byproduct of the 1.2 billion and growing population and the limitations on resources. And that's widespread. I sometimes tend to call it disruptive competition. And it impacts all aspects from education to personal livelihood. And when it comes to hiring good people, you will certainly feel it because it's not immune to the competition in the marketplace. And finding and retaining top talent will always be a challenge. And that's why your brand and your culture early on are going to be critical elements to your strategy. The brand and culture that you create are really going to impact who you hire, how long they stay with you, and eventually the success of your strategy. So you need to foster the values of your organization to really keep and attract the top talent. Your employees will know the true culture of your network way before you will as an overseas executive or leader. And that's going to be the difference between them staying or going when your competitor presents an offer to them. So I learned that American companies already have an advantage in India. They have a strong reputation. And I think that it stems from the values put on certain aspects like compliance, culture, and brand, to name a few. A lot of others ignore this, and a lot of others have challenges later on. So if you can sell this and live by it, and you can create a sense of pride amongst your people in your workforce to see past that next offer, then they're going to be able to withstand that constant pressure that's out there, and you're going to be able to prevent talent being drawn away from your organization. So building a strong brand really helps solidify your organization and limit exposure to churn while creating an identity externally that will impact your long-term success. So tying these three elements to the core of your investment strategy should have a strong or significant impact on the success and the ROI of that investment. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. It's now, we're staying with India, but shifting gears slightly, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who's the chair of India Supply Chain Markets and Opportunities Conference, Agnihotri.
Good morning and namaste. Namaste is a standard greeting from India, and all of you in this international session should know why India is important. I want to, first of all, thank you, Paige and Georgia Logistics Supply Conference, to include this session and focus on India. It's a very growing relationship. Can anybody guess how old is the relationship between USA and India? Anybody? And if you guess it correctly, you are invited free of cost, $300 ticket to my conference. How old is the relationship between USA and India? You don't have, if you are from India, you can't answer this question. Somebody said 500. Yes, sir. Can you explain why? Because Columbus was trying to go to India to look for spices and landed here in 1492. So we have a very old relationship. Started 492, actually a few years before Columbus even started coming towards America. And India is, largely speaking, very undiscovered country for most of the small to mid-sized American companies. For a moment, let's not talk about Coca-Cola, Delta, and UPS, but most of the mid-sized companies, and the range would be from 5 million to $1 billion company. Those are the type of companies who are my client, who are started looking towards, as President Obama said, pivoting towards Asia, which is happening in a big way. And India is a very important part of Asia, along with China and South Korea and Japan. In about 15 years from now, 70% of Fortune 500 companies will be forced to have a headquarter type office in Asia. And India is one of those 3 or 4 countries where companies have started looking into it, including Coca-Cola, which is, I believe, it's one of the top 5 countries for Coke in the coming years in terms of investment. My perspective here is a little bit larger, not from logistics supply point of view, but as a country point of view, and why you should consider India. Kartik mentioned few points in terms of population, 1.21 billion. If you include the population of Canada and Japan, it is 8 times larger than that. 8 times larger than Japan and Canada put together. So if you are in a food business, if you are in a paper supply business, if you are trying to export raw materials, cotton, textiles, or lots of chemicals, India is a great place to be. On an average, India's growth has been about 5.5% in last 10 years or so. It slowed down a little bit. Otherwise, it was neck to neck with China, about 8% per annum. India, in terms of purchasing power parity, is ranked number 4 today. By 2035, Chinese economy is supposed to surpass US economy, and India's economy would be number 3. And these are numbers from World Bank, W Economic Forum, so many places you can look for. Population is high. 55% of the population is in 20s. So why do you think a company like Facebook is spending $19 billion to acquire WhatsApp? Because they have users in Brazil and India. That's why they're forced to spend that kind of money. And those are the signs of the times which are going to come in the future. India's middle class income is rising. I left India about 25 years back to come here, States, to study. But in that 25 years, the transition is tremendous. Today, virtually every Hollywood movie which is released here, same day is released in India, maybe 12 hours ahead of US market. Every car, all top-of-the-line brands worldwide, whether it is American or Japanese or German, they're released simultaneously. As I was saying earlier, the World Bank estimates that India will become 4th largest economy in the world by 2020. This is not in terms of purchasing power parity. This is in terms of hard dollar value. Education is quite prevalent, rising very fast. The difference with other economies like China, Japan, Korea, is that you will find a lot of people who speak English as good as I'm speaking, or in some cases even better than I'm speaking when you land there. Hotels, you can reach there and go on your own to about 99% of the country, except for some areas in the east side or in Kashmir where it is prohibited because it's not, safety-related issues. Otherwise, you can go anywhere. Nobody's going to ask you why you are here. That doesn't happen in most of the countries. In terms of information society and knowledge economy, we all know the power of ICT. The power is coming in the palm, and the more iPads, the more iPhones, the more smaller phones are coming, countries like India are becoming much powerful. In about 5 to 8 years or 10 years from now, the kids who grew up with computers will be writing programs which will run our power stations, our railway station softwares. And that's happening in India. If you go and see GE's Jackwell Center in Bangalore, you will be astounded. 5,000 masters or PhD level people working 24/7. In Bombay, I have a client in film. We went to their 7-story building. About 18,000 people work there 24/7 doing digitization and film production, 3D effects for movies like Gravity, which we don't know because those things are given in subtitles which we don't even read about. The two-way relationship between USA and India is about $100 billion as of 2012. And we believe, I've been in this field for almost 15 years, that this relationship is going to go to tenfold, to go to $1 trillion. PE hit contracts with Lockheed Martin, which in our town, they're making the wings of C-130Js in India and bringing it here via Savannah, or movies, or companies like Ford, GM, everything counts there. In terms of supply chain, the government of India does realize that like Canada, like Japan, the country is not that strong. There are definitely infrastructural deficiencies, but they are catching up very fast. You look up at the metro, introduction of metro trains with help from Japan in Delhi. Almost all big cities, if you go, and I travel 4 to 5 times in India because of my clients and other consulting work, the roads are being built, buildings are being built, trains are being in Bombay last year, or about 3 weeks back, they inaugurated a monorail. So things are happening very, very fast. There are some numbers from government sources. You know, their planning is 5-year plans, and if you can see, there is about five-fold jump between 2001 to 2017. India has world's second largest road network, about 2 million miles. Highways are expanding, being expanded 4 to 6 lanes. Transportation, rural roads, very important. The mega projects, and these are the opportunities for people who are in the audience, who are in construction or supply to construction company, road companies. And we can talk offline if you have interest in knowing anything specific about your industry or a connected industry. And I'll give you an example why India is important. Everybody knows about clean fracking. Do you know what is fracking? Fracking, hydraulic. So the fracking science was developed in US, and one of the chemicals which is being used now, substituting the chemicals, but they're using a natural pulse called guar. And when some of these experts found out about that India produces about 65% of that pulse, that market of that pulse went about 5 times overnight. So those are the things which we don't know, but are happening in different parts of countries there. These are some of the development of infrastructure which is happening, the roads. And if you reach there now, today, if you go to Bangalore, if you go to Hyderabad, if you go to Calcutta, you will see everywhere things are happening. India has world's 4th largest railways, 2nd largest in Asia, so many miles, etc. These super-fast trains are being put in main corridors between Delhi and Mumbai, and then there are some connectivity to other cities. Ports. And there's a 30-second pitch, I hope the page allows it. I organized India Supply Chain Conference in partnership with Georgia Port Authority, Georgia Tech, and a lot of other partners. Our third annual event is in Savannah, and the important is that Georgia Port Authority realizes that the growing importance of India and the trading lines with India. Event is on April 15th and 16th in Savannah. Aviation, India is one of the fastest market for aviation. Day before yesterday, one of the airlines bought about 40 Boeing, placed an order. If you go there, the passenger is increasing. Those are the areas where we have consultants. We need training for pilots, aviation schools, unbelievable need. Warehousing, this slide is from Confederation of Indian Industry. This directly fits into the supply chain market. About 40 to 45% of India's produce, agriculture produce, goes waste because Indian producers are not able to move the goods in time. They don't have enough refrigerated warehouses, and those are direct supply, opportunities for attendees here. In terms of technology, lots of TPL are operating in India. FedEx acquired India's largest TPL a couple of years back for about $800 million. UPS has been active in that market for quite some time. These are some of the numbers about logistics outsourcing in India and the growth percentage rates. The opportunities infrastructure via PPP, shortage of electricity. There is so much of electricity is needed in India, plants, power. And these are some of the initiatives which Government of India has taken. I agree with Kartik that India is not an easy country to enter. You need to know, you have to study it very deeply, you have to have very strong partnerships, relationships. You enter in those markets with a very long-term plan. It is not going to cut a 2 or 3 year. You enter in that partner, and in my portfolio of consulting, at least 3 consulting we are doing right now where the companies have started moving their operations from China to India. And the reason is, be it currency fluctuation, be it the labor issues, but it's happening, and it's happening very fast. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and thank you again. Paige warned me that I would need to contain our talkative speakers, and you have all honored the green, yellow, and red light, so I very much appreciate that. It's now a great pleasure. We're going to shift gears again and talk about Canada. It's a great pleasure to introduce our Consul General here in Atlanta from the Canadian Mission, Stephen Brereton. Please come.
Okay. Great. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for your perseverance as we go through our program this morning. I'm very happy to be here. As our moderator kindly introduced me, I represent Canada here in the southeastern United States, and I'm happy to be part of this distinguished international panel. Certainly, I want to extend my congratulations to the state of Georgia and to particularly to Paige Ciplon and his excellent team for this tremendous event, the 6th Annual Summit on Logistics here in Atlanta. I'm going to talk briefly about this relationship between Canada and the United States, and I think the way in which it can best be described is we are friends and neighbors, we are partners and allies. We have the world's largest bilateral relationship, and I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about that as we look at that integrated North American economy. In fact, trade between Canada and the United States supports over 8 million jobs here in the U.S. Last year, we traded over $630 billion. That represents about $1 million a minute, or several $1 million over the course of this morning's program. Our trade numbers are relatively balanced. In fact, around $330 billion of goods from Canada come to the United States, at least last year, and over $300 billion of goods from the U.S. went to Canada. All of those, of course, required transportation and logistics in order to make that happen. A significant part of the imports from Canada actually contain U.S. origin goods because of the very integrated nature of our economy. It's perhaps not well known, but Canada is actually the largest market for 38 states, including the state of Georgia. And the U.S. sells more than 3 times the amount of goods to customers in Canada than to China. We certainly invest significantly in each other's countries as well. Canadian-owned companies are found in 17,000 locations across the country and employ more than 619,000 U.S. citizens. So it's a very highly integrated economy, and it's a theme that I'll return to during the course of the next few minutes. I've just mentioned and remind you that our moderator, Ted Dean, was speaking about supply chain competitiveness, and that's very important, a very important topic for the Government of Canada, and working very closely with the U.S. government and Mexico to look at North American competitiveness and what that means. And that part of what the process that we're engaged in involves outreach to key stakeholders and partners like those of you who are here today. There has also been considerable evolution in the integration of our economies, transportation sector certainly, over the course of the past 20, 25 years, particularly since the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement came into effect in January of 1989, and now we're celebrating this year the 20th anniversary of NAFTA. Among those 38 states for whom Canada is the largest market is this state, the state of Georgia. Trade with Canada supports over 325,000 jobs here in the state. And last year, we exchanged goods exceeding $10 billion. Of that, $6.3 billion came from Georgia and went to Canada. There are a number of Georgians employed by Canadian companies here. This is not an exhaustive list, but I'll just mention that Price Industries, headquartered in Winnipeg, Manitoba, has employees, I guess, exceeding 800 in its plants in Swanee and Winder. Operating here since 1989, a leader in air distribution products. DIRT Environmental Solutions, those of you from Savannah will know them, headquartered in Calgary, but they have innovative, agile interior systems for plug-and-play infrastructures that clients can repurpose in a very environmentally friendly way, redesigning with little or no waste. They have made a significant and positive impact there in Savannah. Magna International is probably a name that those of you in the auto sector know well. They're an international player, one of the largest auto parts manufacturers in the world, and based in Aurora, Ontario, here in Carleton in West Georgia. And certainly trade and services is a very important part of the relationship. And you're going to be hearing from Descartes, based in Waterloo, Ontario, providers of integrated software solutions for the logistics. They'll be on one of the panels tomorrow. So I want to just assure you all that Canada is very much open for business. We welcome those of you who are new to international trade. We're looking for finding ways of supporting the competitiveness of our integrated economy and supply chains. We have one of the 10 largest economies in the world, a member of the G7 and G20 group of countries. Certainly, you probably know that Canada is well endowed with natural resources of forest, water, minerals, and energy. We're also technologically intensive with a very robust information technology infrastructure. Government finances are sound, and next year the Government of Canada expects to balance its budget. And we certainly are proud of the fact that we have a diverse and talented multicultural and multilingual community of people in Canada. We work closely with representatives from the U.S. government as well as the state of Georgia in terms of finding opportunities for our businesses to work together, and we'll be participating in the networking session at lunch. Representatives from our office will be able to answer specific questions or to assist you. We're very pleased to highlight the opportunities and advantages of doing business in Canada. So as I'm saying that we're keen to find ways in which we can further strengthen our supply chains, be competitive, and there are a number of natural advantages. I'll call them natural advantages, but certainly our shared language, culture, and values are among them. Certainly opportunities for new exporters. We look to provide support for small and medium-sized companies in Canada looking to find opportunities here in this region, and of course across the United States. Likewise, I know that the Commercial Service, the Department of Commerce, is eagerly supporting programs for and opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses. Just one indicator of our integrated economy, Delta Airlines, of course, headquartered here in Atlanta, flies more often to Canada every day than to any other international destination. It won't show up on the charts because for Delta, Canada is part of the domestic network. We have a number of key points to make. I was just mentioning Delta, certainly in terms of Georgia-based or Atlanta-based companies that are active in Canada, Newell Rubbermaid, of course, Georgia Pacific, Coca-Cola, naturally, UPS, Home Depot are certainly among those very, very active Atlanta-based companies. The challenge, of course, we face is globally the global competition, and we need to continue to find ways both in business to business and with support from government in order to address that. Our energy partnership, which I'll speak about very briefly, involves both economic opportunities and energy security. Canada, as you may know, is the largest supplier of oil, natural gas, uranium, and electricity to the United States of any supplier in the world. We supply more oil to the United States than Venezuela and Saudi Arabia combined, and we see with the fact that Canada has the third largest proven reserves in the world provides opportunities for further integration and energy security for North America. There are certainly important links to our competitiveness that for manufacturing, particularly manufacturers who are looking for efficient and reliable and competitively priced energy. In terms of the transportation relationship, very much the backbone, the foundation of the world's largest economic bilateral relationship. We're working closely with our U.S. counterparts on ways in which we can further integrate and cooperate across all modes of transportation. As I indicate here, there are about 119 border crossings. Frequently, people are moving back and forth, in fact, over 300,000 per day. This is just to show a little bit about the modal transportation. The use of road predominates. There's about 70% of the shipments from Canada to the United States, but an even higher proportion, close to 80% of goods from the United States go to Canada by road. So it's very important that as we're developing our transportation strategies, working collaboratively, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure in order to move goods back and forth across our border in an efficient and timely way to get to their destinations and their markets. We have a gateway strategy, which I don't think time is going to allow me to go into too much detail at this point, but simply to say that Canada is the gateway for goods coming to and from North America, from the West Coast through the Pacific Gateway, the East Coast through the Atlantic Gateway, and then we have the Continental Gateway and Trade Corridor that links the economic heartland of Canada with the U.S. and particularly reaching through to the south and the southeast. Again, these three gateways have somewhat different imperatives, but similar opportunities in the sense of finding ways to reduce congestion and integrate the North American market. So a lot is being done between Canada and the United States under the umbrella of the Beyond the Border initiative that was launched by President Obama and Prime Minister Harper in December 2011 to find ways in which we can further improve the efficiency of the way in which the border operates, but at the same time ensure that our citizens in both countries are secure. It is a primary objective, sort of in a next round of collaboration that will bring about, we think, further improved competitiveness in our two countries. Just a brief shout out to those great companies that are here in Georgia, some of them highlighted here. So from Georgia pecans to agriculture equipment, from aircraft to automobiles, and lots of other things that we have to be proud of, I think, for people here in Georgia in terms of companies that are successfully selling into the Canadian marketplace, and particularly into our resource-rich area of Western Canada. There are some examples here who are several companies, in fact, in Georgia that are supplying goods, technology, and equipment to the oil sands. So I will just say in closing that the manufacturing sectors and supply chains of the United States and Canada are highly integrated. We have successful cooperation between our regulatory agencies. We continue to work on that and are reaching out to industry stakeholders for further ideas in order to support that regulatory cooperation dialogue. We have a high degree of success and a unique set of prerequisites for expanding our already highly integrated economic relationship. So thank you very much. If you have a chance, please come and check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And thank you so much for your attention. Pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We're just coming to lunch, but I do want to reward your interest and perseverance, as was said, with time for questions. What I would suggest is maybe we'll take 2 or 3 questions quickly and then let the panel respond, because we really are short of time, and I think we do have mics. While you're thinking of your questions, I want to take a moment of your time. We've had so much talk about international opportunities in this panel, and just remind you of the resources that are at the Department of Commerce for the U.S. firms in the room who are thinking about going to any of these markets. As somebody who spent their career in the private sector and relatively new to the Department of Commerce, I think you'll find exceptionally talented people working very, very hard to help you get into any of these countries or anywhere else. I do want to recognize David Long on my team, who's up here in front, if you're looking for someone and want to track down resources at the Department of Commerce. He's an award-winning Commerce Department employee and a great member of my team, and just please seek us out. And also just renew my call for input into policies around the areas that we've been talking around supply chain. We get the importance of this and are very interested in hearing from you. With that, and I hope you've had time while I gave my advertisement to think of your questions, I'll take hands, or we have 2 mics in the middle there. So, any questions? Everyone wants to get to lunch. We must have a more talkative audience than this. I see hands. I'm missing anyone? Everyone really does want to get to lunch. So I will not be the moderator who will stand in the way of this exercise. I do have a couple of housekeeping things that I need to share with you. We had a very packed morning. I hope these conversations can continue over lunch. There are box lunches upstairs on level 5. In addition to our speakers this morning, we will have representatives from Bahrain, Brazil, Colombia, France, Israel, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Mexico at different stations. There is room in the exhibitor area for lunch and in the ballroom. You will need the lunch ticket that you got this morning. This is designed to be an opportunity to network. Please move around and mingle. You will probably not find 1,000 chairs up there, so it really is a networking time and time to get around. Please be back here at 2 p.m. We have another great session with speakers from Boeing, AGCO, Wesley International, and Denim Textiles. Thank you again for the panel, to all of you for being here, and please join me in thanking our panel.